Hi, my name is John Chase, and I'm here today to talk to you about how to pack a boat for a multi-day trip. So I've got my boat, I've got my gear, and we're ready to go. So the first step in packing your boat for a multi-day trip is to show up like a pro. And in order to show up like a pro, I'm going to use these two IKEA bags to load all my gear in. And the way that I've set it up is I've got one bag for the stern, one bag for the bow. And I know that everything in this one is generally going to go in the rear of the boat, and everything in this one is generally going to go in the front of the boat. And if I need to adjust that at all, I can do so, but then when I'm done at the end of the day, I can simply take that bag out, unload all the gear, put it into its bow bag, into its stern bag, and then take those back with me to camp, and then do the same thing in the morning. So it makes an easy shuttle back and forth. And they've got nice long handles. These are only 99 cents from IKEA, and they work out great. So one for the stern, and second one for the bow. All right, now, first test here is that I want to kind of pick these two up. I want to do a little feel test. I want to see how does it feel, meaning that I want to try and make sure that they're about roughly equal in terms of the weight. Because I want to trim my boat properly so it's sitting level in the water. If I've got too much gear in the rear, then it's going to sit stern heavy. If I've got too much in the bow, it's going to sit bow heavy. I want it to try and sit as level as possible. So that feel test here is going to give me an idea of am I about right? And I feel pretty good right now. I might need to make some adjustments. I think I'm a little heavy on this rear one. So I might need to deconstruct a couple of things, and you'll see what I mean by that. So I'm going to take this one, I'm going to bring that around to the bow, bring this one around to the stern, and I'll swing around behind the boat, and we'll start to get things packed in. So I'm going to start with the stern, and on my boat I've actually got 4 hatches. I've got a stern hatch, I've got a day hatch here, so this will be for things that are immediately accessible throughout the paddle. The cockpit area here, I've got a small day hatch here. It's about the size of a guacamole bowl, which affectionately we call the guacamole bowl here. So that's up in the front, and then I've got my bow hatch. Now the bow hatch and the stern hatch at the very ends, I obviously cannot get to those during the paddle, so those are going to be reserved for things that I really don't need during the day. This small front day hatch and then my rear day hatch are going to be reserved for things that I might need to have access to at some point while I'm on the paddle. So we're going to go all the way to the back of the boat. We're going to start with the stern. I'm going to take that stern hatch off. And if you think about the way that the boat's designed, well, the boat's designed with pointy ends. So since it has pointy ends, I need to make the maximum use of this triangular space that I'm trying to put things into. So to do that, I'm going to start by finding the things in my gear bag here that are thin and pointy. So the first thing that I pull out is my tent. And you might think, well, how am I going to get this whole tent up into the end of the boat? Well, I'm not. So I need to deconstruct some things in order to be able to get them into the boat conveniently. So first thing I'm going to do with this is I'm going to take this, open this bag up. There we go. And I'm going to take out my tent poles. So my tent poles are rigid. I cannot bend those tent poles. But if I take those out, now I can actually bend this piece and fit this areas where I want to make sure that it fits in. So I'm going to set the tent right here for right now. Just going to get that out of my way. And I'm going to take my poles and I'm going to reach all the way into the stern of the boat to get these tent poles up there. Now the way that my boat's constructed, I've actually got a skeg in the middle here, so that skeg drops down. And that skeg, there's what's called a skeg box inside, and that actually divides the boat. So I've got to put some things on one side of the skeg box and some things on the other side of the skeg box. So I'm going to take those poles, I'm going to reach in, and I'm going to slide all the way down here, and tuck those all the way into the very end of the boat. So again, I can make use of that triangular space and not waste that space. So I'm going to dig through my bag here, I'm going to find more things that have that same kind of shape. So I'm going to bring a little luxury here. I'm going to bring an extra chair. So this chair folds open to a decent size, and this one I can maneuver in here as well. So I'm going to go to the opposite side. I'm going to tuck that one all the way up in there as well. So again, I can make use of that space. And sometimes I need to really push things in, so I might need to grab the boat itself. I can either grab the deck lines or I can grab the combing of the boat, the hatch here, and I can tuck and use some force here to pull against it. So I've got those two up there. Next one is I'm going to take is my kitchen set. So my kitchen set, this is an idea that I got from a friend, Michael Gray. So Michael, if you're watching, thank you very much for this one. So this is just a tool roll-up that I bought at a tool shop here. And you'll see that I can take that tool roll up. I can put all my, my knives and other kitchen utensils in here, and then simply roll all that stuff right up into this nice compact system. And tie that back up. And because that falls into the pointy items category, I can now take this and tuck this as well right up into that stern of the boat. So just feel around here and see how I'm doing. I'm going to take a peek inside. There we go. And see how I'm tucking everything in there and again making the best use of that space. So, all right, we have a couple more things out here. See what else I can get in here. So I'm going to come back to this. I've got a lot of space left in here. You'll see there's really nothing. I haven't used any of this space yet. And my next item is tucked into this orange bag. And this is another unique item. Thank you again to Michael for this idea. This is called a woody Dutch oven. And this Dutch oven is actually a cast aluminum Dutch oven. And it separates out into two separate pieces here. And so I can use that Dutch oven as one solid Dutch oven. And I can also separate that and use those on two separate stoves to have two things going at the same time. So it doesn't have to work solely as the Dutch oven. And the whole thing weighs about 8 pounds. A little noisy, sorry about that. And then it also comes with a grabber. I can pinch that on, grab the items, and then move them out. So I'm going to tuck those in there. I've got some other utensils that I've put here. And then this bag is actually going to double as well. So I use a large mesh bag, and the reason that I put this in a very large mesh bag is at the end of dinner, I'll take all the dishes from dinner, put them all in this large mesh bag, close that up, and then I'll hang that and let it all hang dry. So instead of having to manually dry everything, I'll just let it all hang dry and use a big bag for it. So I can tuck this into that bag, zip that closed, take that, and I'm just going to slip that right behind me here. Now you'll notice that I'm putting the heavier items closer to my body, because my body's going to be the heaviest thing that's in the boat. And so I'm going to try and have the heavier things closer to me, have the lighter things further away. So this one weighs about 8 pounds, so I'm going to tuck that in right there. And grab a few more items that I can put in here. So I've got a couple of stoves. I actually bring 2 stoves with me. So I've got a jet boil stove that I'm going to tuck in here. And I've got an extra fuel bottle for my other stove. And let's set this rear hatch aside for a second. And we'll come back to that rear hatch because I've got a pretty decent amount of space. So I'm going to put things into the, I need to do that tent. I've still got a decent amount of space, so I can still tuck more in here, but we'll kind of play with that a little bit. Right now I'm going to go to this day hatch. And I know that there are a number of things that I have in this bag that I really want to have access to throughout the day while I'm paddling. So let's kind of go through those. So first is my first aid kit. I always keep my first aid kit in the red bag. First aid, red, so that makes sense. So I'm going to tuck that into the day hatch. I mentioned I carry a couple of stoves, so I've got one stove that I'm carrying here. So I'm going to tuck that into my day hatch as well. And also going to carry a fuel bottle. There we go. So I've got a fuel bottle for that stove that I will put into this day hatch as well. I have a bottle that I'll put some hot water in. And that hot water can come in handy throughout the day. I've got a repair kit. And this repair kit has quite a few different items in here. And with this repair kit, I can actually end up repairing most things that go wrong with a boat, as well as my gear, my personal gear. So I've got some Gorilla Tape, so I can tape clothing if it gets torn. I've got some extra line and extra fittings, so if I break any of the deck fittings off. This trash bag and this bungee and a cord lock would work well if I happen to lose a day hatch, or if I lose one of my hatches. If that were to come off, I could then basically make a new hatch by wrapping a trash bag around that, using the bungee, wrapping it around, and then tightening that up with a cord lock. And of course, I also carry the all-important duct tape. That duct tape, you never know when that's going to come in handy. So I'm going to tuck all that right in here. And this is my repair kit. So that repair kit might change depending on who I'm with or what kind of equipment that we have, what kind of boats we have. If I don't have any fiberglass boats, for example, I wouldn't have a piece of fiberglass or an epoxy set, so I might just have something else in there. So I'm going to take that, put that in my day hatch as well. case. So this Pelican case, I'm going to use this to just put keys and a cell phone, just things I want to keep dry. So I'll tuck that in here. My water filter, I'm going to put that one into the boat as well. And I'm going to put that in the day hatch because I may need to have access to the water filter throughout the day. One thing that I also may need to have access to throughout the day, unfortunately it happens, so here we go, I'll make sure I get that in there. And then some personal items, toiletries, toothbrush, that sort of thing. I'll put those in here if I ever decide that I want to have those. I have a light that I'll carry. I'll actually put that in the back. And then I also have a small solar panel, just a real small accessory solar panel. And that one I'll actually end up carrying with me, again, here, but sometimes I'll put that out on the deck if I want to charge that, because then it charges itself throughout the day. So I'll just tuck that one in there for right now. And then I've also got a Nalgene bottle. And the purpose behind this Nalgene bottle is not the drink from, but I'm actually going to use this for my food. So we'll come back to the food here in just a moment. I'm going to tuck that in there. And then, so what else goes in here? Let me just pull a couple things out. Put those in here for a moment. And those small items will end up fitting around other things as I finish this off. Because again, I've got all this space here. So like I said, we'll come back to this Nalgene bottle. I'll set that one right there. And for right now, I can also put my tent in here. And again, because this tent can now fold, I can now take this tent, mold it around, mash it into place, and get it exactly where I want that tent to be. So I think I want it on this side. I'm going to push that over a little bit. And make use of that space. So you'll see I still have all this space available to me. I can tuck my hand way up here. I can still get my arm all the way down here, so there's still a lot of space available inside this boat. All right, so that's where I am for right now. And like I said, all this other stuff, we'll tuck that in a little bit later. Once I know that I'm done with that particular hatch. All right, moving up to the front, we're going to go to the front hatch of the boat here. And I'm going to take a few items out, get those ready to load in. We'll take off that day hatch, or that front hatch, and talk about what else we have here. So, as I start to maneuver these bags around, one of the things that you'll notice is the dry bags that I use. So these are all Sea to Summit bags. I've got some seal line bags as well. And I tend to use the nylon bags that are nice and smooth. I stay away from the plastic bags. That's just my personal preference. The plastic bags stick to one another, so if you're trying to maneuver them along inside, they don't really slide very well. But these nylon bags will slide very well. And I also can mold them. I can move them in different ways. So this is my clothing bag, and I've left a little bit of air in here because I wanted to show you that one thing that I will do with my clothing bag is I'll take this bag, after I've stuffed everything in here, that I will then take that bag, and let's see where can you see this? If I do that right here, you see I can actually squish that bag down, get some of the air out of that bag, and then once I've got that air out of the bag, then I'll roll the top. There we go. Kind of vacuum pack all that stuff in there. There we go. So you can see that that's kind of wrinkly, and so, but it's still maneuverable. I haven't packed it down so tight. All right? So nylon bags are my preference. Going back to that whole pointy end concept, I've got some pointy things that I want to be able to put into the bow section of the boat. And one thing that a lot of people don't know is that you can actually carry eggs with you in your boat, and those eggs will actually stay good. And I want to put them into a space where they aren't going to get crushed. So if I put them right in the center, in the main section, I'm packing all kinds of stuff around them. Well, where else am I going to be able to get these eggs that nothing else is going to be around them? You guessed it, all the way up in the bow of the boat. So I'm going to take those eggs, and I'm going to start by tucking those eggs all the way up right into the bow of the boat. There we go. Reach those up there. Also got some other pointy things, so I'm going to take those, reach those all the way up. Again, filling that boat. I want to make sure I'm using all the space in the boat that I possibly can. And I'm going to just fit the rest of my stuff. This is my food, and my food items, I've taken my food and I've dehydrated food. You can buy dehydrators pretty cheap. You can probably go on Craigslist or eBay and find a used one, or you're welcome to go buy a new one as well. But I bought one for $30, $35. I'll dehydrate food for a couple of weeks ahead of time. You can make stew and soup and spaghetti sauce and just about anything. You can dehydrate that, it packs it down really, really small. What I'll also do is I'll take instructions, like a recipe, and I'll write that out on a small piece of paper. I'll tuck that in the same bag or even write it on the bag itself, and then I've got it all in that one bag. Now, if I'm dehydrating beef, for example, or some other kind of meat, that's where this Nalgene bottle comes in handy that I was talking about earlier. So what I'll do is when I get ready to leave camp in the morning, I'll dig into my evening meal and figure out what I want to have for the evening meal. Once I figure that out, I'll take that item, let's say it's a stewing beef, I'll pour that into here, I'll put some water in here, cap that back up, I'll throw that into the boat, and then during the day, it's rehydrating itself, so I don't have to wait when I get back to camp. It's just doing it for me throughout the day, and I'm ready to go. So it's my food bag. I'm going to take that food bag, and because this is a little bit heavier, I'm going to put this one, again, a little bit closer to me. So I'm going to keep that one aside for a moment, and I'll put some other things in first. Small and pointy, so this is my sleeping bag, and I'm going to take the sleeping bag, I'm going to tuck that all the way up into the front as well. I've got a sleeping pad, I can tuck that in there. And as a little extra added bonus, I'm going to bring a hammock too. And sometimes it's a matter of refitting things, so I just tried to fit that hammock in there. It didn't work, so I had to take my sleeping pad out. I'm going to take the sleeping pad out and just kind of feel for it. Again, I'm going to grab the bow of the boat. I'm going to push this up. There we go. All right, so I can use that space most effectively. And then I noticed when my hand was in there, I had a little bit of extra space. So I'm going to take my pillow, and this is just an inflatable pillow, and I'm going to tuck that up in there as well. There we go. Using every ounce of space. And then I've got two other bags here, so I can take my sleeping pad, tuck that up in there, my clothing bag, I'm going to put that one in last, my food, I'm going to put that behind the hatch, I've got space right back here, and now my clothing, because that can bend and mold into different shapes, I can take that, tuck that up there, we go, let's see how that works. And then I do have a little bit of extra kitchen stuff. So some utensils and things, plates and such. I can tuck that back there easier. And then, yeah, this will work. So I can take the kitchen stuff, tuck that in, and I'm going to fold that underneath. There we go. Look at all that extra space. Isn't that beautiful? And I can still get hand all the way up there, so I know that I haven't effectively used all that space yet. These are bear sacks. So I can take these, if I'm in bear country, I'll tuck those in, and when I'm storing food at camp, I'll use those. And I've still got a little bit of space there. So we'll come back to that one before we cap that off. And I always want to make sure I bring a good book to read, so I'm going to bring a good book to read here, so Power to the Paddle, Shameless Plug, and I'll tuck that in so I know that one's going to be able to go in there as well. So we're going to go back to the rear hatch, and I think this is actually going to be able to go in the front hatch. So go back to the rear hatch here, and let's talk about being able to fit the rest of this stuff into the rear hatch. So I've actually got a pretty decent amount of space left in this boat. This is my food. So I've talked about food in there, that's all the dry food, but this is some cold food. And there's times I'm going to want to be able to keep some cold stuff. So that one I'm going to tuck in here as well. So again, just maneuver that around, figure out exactly how that's going to fit in. So there we go. Since I've got extra space there, I don't quite want to put that one in yet. What else can I tuck up in? So I've got a little teapot to boil some water. Tuck that up there. Here we go. I've got a 10-liter bucket, so I can. It's a folding bucket. When I go to get water, I will basically scoop a 10-liter bucket of water, bring that back to camp, and then I can use that to refill my gravity filter. Let's see. This I might still be able to get up here as well. This is is my secondary stove. Still a lot of space in there. Extra fuel bottle. That works. Again, the whole trial and error. There we go. Got space to use. Extra fuel canister. That all the way up there. I'm only need to bring one of the fuel canisters for this. I'll leave that one beside. I'll tuck this stove right up in there as well. There we go. I have a little teapot. Tuck that in, and then I can take this last food item, lay that right there. There we go. Still lots of space. And so, this extra top. Never know when I'm going to need an extra top, or somebody else is going to need an extra one. I'm also going to have a pair of gloves and a hat that I'll tuck in here. So that's going to go in my day hatch in case I need that throughout the day. So I'm done there. Here I am just about done. There's only one item that I need to put in here, and that is my IKEA bag. I'm going to take that bag. These pack down nice and small, and they can go just about anywhere. So that one I can just fit right in here. There we go. Nice compact fit. Put my hatch on. We'll go back up to the front of the boat here. And then just my last two items. I'm going to take that Nalgene bottle that I have a little bit of food dehydrating in, or rehydrating I should say, and tuck that right up there. Perfect, nice fit. Now you notice I put all soft items into this bow hatch. And I should not say all soft items, but mostly soft items. I really stayed away from metal items, particularly around this area, because I've got a compass here on the deck. And since I have this compass on the deck, I want to keep metal items away from the compass, because otherwise it would screw up the compass. So I've got my lighter items here, I do have my pointy items here, and I put the heavier items, like the food items, right behind the hatch, because again, they're closer to the body. Again, I'll put my good book to read in here, tuck that in, take my last IKEA bag, we got more space there, tuck that in, there we go, put the book in, got a nice fit, ready to go. Now I've got everything inside the boat, and all that's left is just for me to get the paddles, and I'm going to put the paddles on my deck. So I'm going to put an extra paddle out here on the deck, my second split out here on the deck as well, and I will also have a pump that I'll store right between those two. And then I'll also carry a water bottle on the deck. So my goal is to be able to have the outside of the boat as clean as possible, as little as possible. Only the stuff that I absolutely need on the outside of the boat, everything else tucked safely on the inside of the boat. And I also want to make sure that I keep that stuff into a position where it's not going to be moving around, it's not going to be shifting. So we've got everything inside the boat. This is actually the same amount of gear that I would carry for a week-long trip. So with that, we are ready to go, and our boat is loaded. I appreciate you joining me today. Thank you very much. I hope you've learned something about how to pack your kayak for a multi-day trip.